Our last speaker, David Cummings, who's had a long and distinguished career at USRA, he's unfortunately taken ill. The good news, it's nothing serious as far as we know, but the bad news is he's not here to speak. So before I turn the floor over for final remarks, I just wanted to give a shout out of thanks for the excellent support, the outstanding team from USRA, with the help from the National Academy and making this event happen. I'd appreciate if everybody give them a round of applause for all their efforts. I'll now invite Dan Baker to the podium for final remarks. Dan is a distinguished professor at the University of Colorado Boulder, and very importantly for us, he's the chair of the USRA Council of Institutions. Dan?
Yeah, let me add my thanks to all who made this program possible. It's a real honor to be part of this and to hear the remarks from such a distinct and broad group of speakers today. I'd just like to say a couple of words about this period 50 years ago, 5 decades ago, when USRA was founded, and the fact that there was the willingness that Jack Schmidt talked about to take or to manage risks and to take the great adventure in human exploration. But at that same time that our nation was making huge investments in deep space exploration as well. The fact that the Pioneer 10 and 11 missions were launched in about that time, the Mariner 10 to Mercury, and that there was this virtual explosion of exploration fever to explore our entire solar system to the greatest extent possible. And over the next years to send the Voyagers, it really was remarkable, and I hope that we can return, and that the ambitions for the future that are in the title of this slide are really, I think, what we should be looking at now is how can we make the next 50 years as exciting and as productive as the past 50 years have been. And also picking up on a theme that Jack raised, I would say that universities have played an essential role in keeping the nation's space program young. I think that by universities having the constant turnover they do, bringing the young people and the young ideas, there are many agencies and departments, I think, of government that we can point to that have ossified, that have become very, very staid and very different than they imagined themselves initially. But I think that NASA has done better than most, and the space program has done better than almost any other thing we can point to. And I think as we look at the space program now, what's called new space, but that involves a whole range of new approaches, it's remarkable how resuscitated the space program has become with entrepreneurs and commercial involvement and a whole different set of approaches. So I'm very optimistic that universities and the University Space Research Association and that folks in this room are going to empower new generations to really make great contributions. And I'd like to now call on one of the persons I think who has been charged with making a lot of this happen, a friend and colleague of long standing, who now has an important role to play within the nation's space exploration program, and who's been very active in the recent past in USRA, Thomas Zurbuchen. I'm advised that he's here, and that I would like to ask him to come down and to say a few words. And I'm managing risk by putting him between all of you and drinks. And so I trust that this will assure that his remarks are brief and to the point, and then I will welcome you to join us for lunch. Yeah, good to see you.
So happy anniversary, USRA. Needless to say, I'm really excited for the organization, but everybody who's been affected by USRA in a direct fashion. Most of them are not here. Students at universities, civil servants who have worked with USRA, contractors who have been hired by USRA to really create that interface, that set of interfaces that is relevant and important as we break new ground, go beyond what we have done before. I, of course, was, as was mentioned by Dan, part of USRA. I actually had the job that you have right now, and I was really glad to do so. Many things that were thought about are part of our program now. We have an initiative of small spacecraft, and have changed our hosting policies on launches that we have in science. In every case, we carry along ESPA rings that can carry small spacecraft into space. That's very much ideas that in part were pushed by USRA and its stakeholders. So needless to say, we are excited for what's happening here, but especially excited for what's happening in the future. Every once in a while, I visit universities, I visit NASA centers, and one of the activities that I've done is that in all cases, I ask for 1 hour with either early career faculty or with grad students. And that's a simple reason, and the simple reason is to create excellence over the time frame we're thinking about. Those people are more relevant than the ones that happen to meet in the hours before. As much as I love meeting deans and presidents, distinguished faculty like Dan and others, it's the grad students, it's the postdocs, it's the early career professors and scientists that are out there, shoulder to the wheel and innovating beyond what we have thought of before. I consider it my task, our task at NASA, to empower those. In fact, I just spent 2 hours thinking through the technology investments from that point of view, from the point of view of how we actually bring forward new ways of opening up opportunities for science. Yes, we want to leave low Earth orbit with our astronauts. We're proud of the legacy that was achieved, the international collaborations that have enabled us to learn about staying in space for long duration. We're proud of the legacy that we came from 50 years ago. Like the majority of people on Earth today, I have no recollection of the Apollo program. I was too young. And I do not remember a single moment where humans stood at the surface of the moon. I've watched all the movies and read the books, including yours, sir. So I love thinking of that. But what I and many of my colleagues at NASA have committed to is creating the future as we go forward. What are the elements of that future? It's a future of partnership. It's a future of partnership that I just mentioned involves the university community in a direct fashion because we need the best talent, the talent at the youth, at the vitality that have been very much at the core of what made Apollo Apollo. It's hard to imagine a different Apollo than the kind of workforce that was described here. It's vitality that also is more diverse than the Apollo community. We believe that more thoughts brought together, more backgrounds brought together, more different orientations of various kinds, diversity of thought brought together creates more innovation. And frankly, if I talk to people that I've met in the Apollo program, they think about it the same way. They thought about the very struggles that they had making the right decisions. And that's what we're trying to set up. It's also partnership in an international fashion. We don't believe that leadership and partnerships are mutually opposing values. Not at all. We are proud of enabling others. We just met with the Israeli Space Agency. We're excited to be signing up again to be part of the second time Israel goes back to the moon. We're also just signed an agreement with Greece to, in fact, go to the moon with one of our commercially acquired processes, the CLIPS program that we've built. That kind of program will get Greece to the surface of the moon. There's other countries that we talk to, including in the Arab space, including in Europe, of course, our long-time friends and partners, Asia, in many different places. New organizations that want to go. Our path forward to the moon is one of partnership. I talked about the academic community. I talked about the international community. I want to talk about our community of commercial partners. Yes, there are multitudes of them. And it's our job to learn how to interact with them, and we're learning every day. Are we learning fast enough? Probably not. We're trying our best as we're learning how to, of course, work with the valued partners that have brought us to where we are, companies that have proud heritage and many decades of track record, supporting not only NASA, but our cross-agency partners and so forth. And there's new partners that we're working with each and every day. It really helps me that I was part of a venture fund even a few years back, learning about how the narrative sounds for these companies and what they can do. Really imagining how they can reach beyond what processes would bring us in the old way of doing business. So we're excited about these partnerships, and we're excited about going forward to the moon. Most importantly, we really want to leave low Earth orbit with human explorers, and we want to go to the moon because we want to enlarge the range in which we work and think in. And we want, of course, to do science. We have amazing science that can be done. I know a lot of it has been discussed already. I'm not going to go over that. In many ways, the moon is a body in which a lot of the history books of the Earth and the solar system is right imprinted right there, and it's ours to read. And we know, in many cases, how to do that. We're excited to do that. Of course, the moon is not the final destination. We actually are thinking about already how we can go to Mars. You know, today we announced the first Marsquake being observed with InSight. We're really excited about this, and I want to stop with that. I just remember the agony that you have if you sit there as the associate administrator in the back row of JPL, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to help that mission other than keep sitting there, because the team, the best team in the world, is landing that spacecraft at the surface of Mars. And I remember that moment. I will never forget it. What I'll also remember is what happened the next day. I took the red eye back after landing InSight on Mars, and I took the red eye back and I looked at the press clippings. Of course, it was in our newspapers, on the front page in many of them, you know, the newspapers that you may read, some of your family members may read. Here in the United States, of course, it was in Europe. So many of the experiments were built in Europe, and we were glad to fly to the surface of Mars. But what's also exciting, the newspaper in Iran, that is the key newspaper of the religious leadership, also had it above the fold. Exploration, ladies and gentlemen, unites. Exploration brings together the whole world. Exploration is more important than the little step we're doing into the cosmos, to the moon, to Mars and beyond. And exploration is important in a way that's really worth dedicating your life, dedicating your passion to it. I want to close with a single quote. You've heard it many times. I'll read it again. A quote by a Cornell professor called Sagan. "The surface of the Earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean." Reading that, of course, one day after Earth Day, our favorite planet, right here. "On this shore, we've learned most of what we know. Recently, we've waded a little way out, maybe ankle deep, and the water seems inviting. Yes, it's inviting. Let's keep exploring. Let's go deeper into space, to the moon and beyond." Thank you so much.
With those inspirational words, I invite everyone to go out and have witness the cake cutting. I believe there's going to be a cake cutting. Have some drinks, and let's talk about what we've learned here today. Thank you very much.